Welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is DJ, author, and public speaker, Amani Roberts. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Excited to chat with you.
Yeah, well, we're already getting to it off camera. I said, hey, we got to hit record and get this recorded. So, go ahead and introduce yourself to our listeners a little backstory, and then we're gonna jump into some exciting stuff you got going on.
Okay, my name is Amani. Grew up in the DC area, the DMV. I grew up in hotels, working in hotels across the United States. Then became a full-time DJ, and also now released my second book called The Quiet Storm, which came out in February of 2025. We reached the USA Today bestseller list on launch week, which was amazing. And then I speak about the music business and creativity, and I coach people who are working in the music industry but want to make more money. That's a little bit about me.
Good. Well, we're just gonna jump into you helping me make money in the music industry then.
All right, let's go. Let's
That's
go.
amazing. That's a what a turn. So hospitality was kind of your base, obviously easy to dip into starting to DJ parties and things like that from that world. Was it kind of a natural progression through these things during your life to okay, now I know how to do this. Now it's time to teach others?
Well, what happened is that kind of in the middle, once I became a full-time DJ, I also became a college professor, and I would teach music business at the local college and also be DJing out and about. And that's where I really grew my love for the music business. Then I went to grad school, Berklee College of Music in Boston, for my master's in music business, and that kind of confirmed it. My thesis was my book, and that's kind of the evolution of how I got there. And now I just help, both people who are working full time but have music that they want to monetize, and then people who are kind of working in the industry as a musician and want to get a bigger audience, more money, etc. So those are two people I work with.
Right. Well, and there's just so many avenues these days in the entertainment industry to make a living. And I think every single one of us kind of has a different path. There's not a one size fits all. It's not the 80s. Get a band of your buddies together, grow your hair long, and play some power chords and hunt a record deal, right? Like those days are so long gone. And both of us kind of lived through it. I'm just kind of I guess interjecting. I'm 39, so as I'm graduating high school, the internet is really starting to push. By the time I'm 5 years into a music career, the whole
Yeah,
game changed, right?
yeah.
And I've been stumbling through for the last decade and a half, trying to like, okay, well, what is the music industry now? And well, I was very fortunate to find podcasting within the last 18 months to find that I really have a knack for this, and this is how I serve my community of musicians, doing a
Mhm.
lot of the same things. My book isn't out yet. I'm still working on finishing the manuscript and getting that out, but it's really to train people how, like, this is what I did. It's not necessarily like you have to do this, but this is how I did it. I had success. Here's maybe some other, case studies, right? Friends of mine that
Right.
have made it in another way, and to deliver that. Love that, a music educator who's well educated, not just from the school, but you've lived the career as well. And I feel like that's not always the case.
Yeah, I would agree. Over 18 years being a DJ, doing remixes, performing. So it could be as even as basic as just making sure you're getting all your royalties, both domestically and internationally. A lot of artists don't know about that, whether it be through Song Trust, Sound Exchange, the MLC. Then the whole concept of synchronization, getting your music into movies, films, video games, is pretty new to some artists. They know about it, but they don't really understand it. And then we get into the merch game, communicating with your fans. Like there's so much to it. And now, as you said, like I grew up, I'm a little older than you. I grew up in the area of like buying cassettes and CDs. But now music has been devalued so much, it's almost for free. You can listen to everything for free on YouTube. So it's really marketing. Really, your streaming and your songs are marketing. You want people to come into your community, whether it be through a podcast, or like a Patreon, things like that. Buy your merch, sign up for your subscription, and just continue to come see you when you're out on tour. Those are kind of the keys in the short term. The long term would be like your publishing, getting that money to pay you, mailbox money, as we call it.
Right. And I don't know how much of that is. I mean, obviously, there's still some out there, but it's far and few between. There's no radio hits really anymore that you're. I worked with a gentleman who did Tom Petty's first two records for Shelter
Ooh.
Records. And he
Okay.
didn't get his name on the record because the guy, the record exec kind of took the producer name, but he gave him the royalties. And for decades, this man is collecting a check every
Yeah.
now and then, right? Because
Yeah.
these songs are still hitting the airwaves, right? But that's not really a possibility these days. And I think any musician who's in the game realizes that streaming isn't going to pay really
Yeah.
anyone's bills anytime soon.
Mm-mm.
So it's exactly what you kind of touched on at the beginning there is it's about building a community around your art, right? And then letting that community kind of invest into you through merch and ticket sales. And, maybe you're writing a book, your memoirs. I think a lot of artists these days can take a model from the biggest acts in the world and what they've done and to just do the same thing. Now, will you run the same numbers? Probably not, but
Right.
not all of us need those numbers to maintain the lifestyle that we want to live. I don't think many
Yeah.
artists these days are chasing the rock star lifestyle. They just want to
Yeah.
to stay on the road essentially.
I agree. I agree. You could follow like Kevin Kelly's model, the 1,000 true fans. If you can get 1,000 people to spend $100 a year on your merch, your product, your community, that's $100,000. And that's a good way of living. You can build from there, do other things. That's kind of the model that I really speak from and the philosophy I really like to promote. And like you said, some of the biggest artists, like we'll look at like a Taylor Swift, she's written a book. So that shows you just how you can do that. There are other artists who have phenomenal merchandise, things like that. So it's just what can you do to keep people in your community and to try to monetize it that way?
And I think it's hard for a lot, especially fans, to realize that Taylor Swift started out essentially as one of us, right?
Yes.
She was a young girl with a dream. I follow her former manager, Rick Barker, quite a bit.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and that's kind of so when I got out of prison in 2018, it was obvious that the world had changed, right? I did 2 years in prison and was kind of coming out to one of a new life, right? I was not going to be doing the things I was before, mainly, selling drugs at the parties we were throwing,
Mhm.
like
Right,
that.
right.
I wasn't going back to that. I'm sure as a DJ, you can relate to plenty of people
Mhm.
around the scene in DC
Yeah.
that
Yes.
was the model, right? Oh, we're gonna throw raves so we can sell the drugs to the kids at the party, and like that's how you that's how you made money in the music business.
Mhm.
And obviously, that's not tenable, nor is it a very great place to live in, from a moral standpoint. And I think that following that model of like just go find the people that love you and keep investing in those people, keep inviting those people further and further into your world. And things like Patreon can be so influential and such a great, maybe it's not providing that lifestyle, but it's providing a foundation, right, of that monthly subscription coming in that might pay the rent. Right. So
Yeah.
I think it's great what you're doing. I can't wait to read the book. I'll need a copy of that to put on the display back here and
Yes.
tell
Yes.
all of our other artists. So obviously you just released the book back in February, pushing that very hard. Is there, I mean, obviously we're trying to, teach artists how to make money, but is there a central theme to the book that is more than the money?
Yeah, the theme to the book is just the history of R&B groups. So we started in the 1950s and go to the mid 2000s. We identify about 10 or 11 groups per decade that were the top groups based on Grammy nominations and wins, record sales, notable performances, and Billboard Hot 100 hits. So we go through the entire chronology of all the groups. Then the last 20% is what happened to the groups, why they disappear, and what's going to happen next. So that's kind of the theme, takes you through a journey. You understand some stories you'll learn from artists about how they, had issues with the record label, or group dynamics caused them to break apart, or, drugs were a big part of how they declined, but also some of them were really creative and like Earth, Wind, and Fire was able to really create, memorable shows that still to this day have been unmet. And so that's kind of the theme. What it's about takes you on a journey. There's lots of songs in there, playlist, and that's the book.
Yeah. Oh man, music fans are gonna love this one. I think we
Yes,
all
yes.
crave that a little bit behind the curtain, right? That's why shows like Behind the Music on VH1 way back in the day were so
Yeah.
successful. In some ways, that's what this network and this program specifically, the Scene Projects, is really about. It is letting you kind of meet the people behind the art, right? And giving you a little glimpse into that because it's not always easy to get the whole story just in the art. Had a really interesting conversation today with a dancer turned choreographer turned author herself now. And it's like,
Okay.
wow, you got this whole journey, but for people just watching you perform one time, they build a totally different story in their mind of who you are. And that was so interesting to me. So love that not only are you doing that, for yourself, obviously you probably have ways for your fans to engage with you, but also showing a little bit of the history of where we've come from and how we got here is so important.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Just the history is good, the knowledge, and then another part is like just the samples. So samples are a really big part of like hip hop, but most of the samples come from like R&B music and other music, and so to share with some of our younger viewers and younger fans where this music is coming from is also very educational. Really, really makes me feel happy also.
Yeah, and especially as a DJ, do you find that somehow you've become like an archivist of the good music so you can introduce the younger generations to
Yeah,
it?
yeah. I like the way you put that. An archivist, a curator, those are two good words to kind of say just to share. Here's what's hot now, but maybe here's where it came from, where they got a sample from, or the lyrics and stuff. So just a little education here and there. But we have love for the new music, but we have love for the older classics as well.
Yeah, and I think in this day and age, I mean, obviously early hip hop, late 80s, 90s, Dre's samples was pulling all from that funk and R&B
Mhm.
sound that I mean, I wasn't familiar with the music. I was kind of a baby in the early 90s
Yeah.
when this music was popular, but now as my tastes have expanded and I'm listening back to some of the hip hop from there, I'm like, "Oh, that's where that came from. Oh, that's where that
Yeah.
came from."
Yeah.
So I think your book's a really cool dive into that. Really can't wait to dig into the pages.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. I agree. It's just it's a great curation of all this history of music as well as the ode to the future. And I think your listeners and your community is going to really enjoy it because you can't read it all like in one sitting. You have to keep coming back to it, listen to something, trying to analyze it for yourself and go from there.
Yeah, did you make a Spotify playlist that goes along with
Yes, so
everything?
there's a Spotify playlist and a YouTube playlist that talks about my favorite songs is kind of one playlist, and then my favorite samples that I mentioned in the book, another one. So you have like two different ways you can listen to it. The Spotify favorite songs, Spotify samples, and then the same thing is on YouTube.
Oh, that's so cool. What an
Yeah.
interactive way to
Yeah.
just really immerse yourself in this book and into the songs, right? And
Agreed.
remembering what music made us feel like. And you kind of touched on the top that we know we're listening to AI music at this point. It's been devalued so much. And we need to remember what it did for us. And I think on some levels, like me as a songwriter and musician, a lot of times need that refresher, right? Of like, music is powerful
Yeah.
stuff, and it deserves better than what it's been given the last decade, really. And I think we're finding our way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of people ask me my opinions on like AI music and what are my thoughts. I don't think like this is my opinion. Like AI hasn't gone through heartbreak. They haven't gone through, the loss of a parent suddenly. They haven't gone through maybe the feeling that you miss when you're away from home for multiple years. So even if an AI artist is singing or making a song, it's not going to have that feeling, that soul within the song. In addition, some of the greatest songs in history have lots of imperfections throughout the song. Look at like a Jimi Hendrix when he played the guitar, he did crazy things that people hadn't really thought of before. And so at first people thought he was crazy, then it's like legendary. When someone sings a song, maybe it's Celine Dion and she sings a song and maybe she's off key because she gets so emotional singing about the song or her voice breaks at a certain part of the song. Like you can't program AI to do that. And those are the parts of the song that we love the most, the imperfections. So I think that as much as people try to use AI to create music, it's the imperfections that we love. And it's very hard to predict or duplicate that using an AI artist.
Well, and even, studio techniques, because we've moved from, analog tape and that you only had a certain amount of tape, right? Like you
Mm.
better go in there and deliver the performance of your life. Now, with techniques like comping, where I watched a short bit with Billie Eilish one time, and she's like, yeah, this take is like 197 takes, and we took the best little moments from all these things. And it's just like, but doesn't that rule, like, you're such a soulful person too, right? Like I feel like
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
a huge Billie Eilish fan, but what I've seen from her is like you're a very deep individual. Why would you kind of want to degrade that performance that you delivered by going and dissecting and chopping it up? And I understand that, we're seeking perfection, but it's just I don't know that that's how you get there. And maybe that's because I was
Yeah.
raised on the Grateful Dead and like live music is the best, right? Like,
Right.
and we're just
Yeah.
coming from a different era of music, right? Than what these
Yeah.
young children, kids, I call them, right? These 20 somethings now
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
doing.
Even if she's using comping, it's all going to show up when she's singing live. When she's singing live, she's going to have to sing it as it is, and maybe she pauses. Maybe her voice breaks, but in the live performances is where I say like the chickens come home to roost, and people love her. So they're going to love her live shows, whether or not she's singing everything perfectly or their imperfections. So no matter what you do in the studio, when it comes to a live performance, that's when it's going to show up.
Well, and maybe it's, I mean, Billie Eilish is a very young woman. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? And now she's been in this huge national spotlight. So maybe it's, just experience. And with experience, that she's going to evolve in that way to say, no, I want to go bare bones. And maybe they're recording on actual tape again
Hmm.
in the future. And I look at an artist like a Miley Cyrus, who kind of did that
Mm.
with her album Malibu and
Hmm.
really brought it back and kind of got a little more raw. And I think sometimes age and experience are the only things that can teach you that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Malibu, I think Flowers was on that album, if I recall correctly. And that's like, that was Song of the Year, I want to say. That one it got nominated many awards, and that's a great song. I mean, with the beat, the lyrics, like, she knocked that one out of the park. And that's good that she went back to being more raw because she did that, and you see the results, and she's got a classic song now.
Man, I am so thankful we got to have a little conversation today because these are topics I don't get to talk about a lot in my small town. And nobody's in my industry. That was really the impetus for starting the Scene projects, was to connect mostly with Midwest artists, because I feel like in flyover country here, nobody's coming to cover us.
Hmm.
Anyway, we don't have a lot of weekly arts magazines like that. But the conversations I've been able to have with other artists and people from all over the country and all over the world has just been an absolute blessing. Amani, do you have your own podcast at all?
I do. I do a podcast called Adventures in Business. It's with my co-host and great friend Manny Graziano, and we talk to people who primarily work in like the hospitality industry, speaking, and we kind of get to know them, get advice, wisdom, and we do that every week. Usually it's live, 4 p.m. on the East Coast, 1 p.m. on the West, and then it goes out to a podcast after that. So that's the podcast that I work on currently, and we're just celebrating about 3 years, 200 episodes.
Awesome. Awesome, man. I just love it. You got such great insights into the music business and to music in general. So thankful that we got to get together today and have a little conversation. Let you go ahead and plug any, website where we can find the book and everything before I let you get out of here.
Yeah, if anyone, an artist is listening to our conversation and they really want to take the next step to get to the next level with their music, they can go to amaniexperience.com/call. I give a free 30-minute call. We can talk about your music, your art, and that's the best way to reach me.
Well, Amani, thanks for coming on the show today. And I want to thank you for being part of the scene.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me. It was a great conversation.
And everybody else, make sure you're liking the show, following us everywhere, and we'll see you next time.